Testing 1, 2, 3. Who's your daddy?
God damn it.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth! Take the truth! Don't set you free!
There he is.
Sorry, man.
It's
I'm
okay.
so bad with tech.
And trust me, I'm with you, man. Well, I mean,
I had a bunch of
I'm not
things loaded
that
up on a
bad,
flash
but
drive.
no, but I get it. I think I got all the images. I tried to put them all. I made a different folder, so hopefully it will be easy to go through it. But hey, before we get started, how do I say your last name the right way?
Langenderfer.
Oh my gosh, is it German?
Lang
Lang?
and Derfer. Langenderfer.
Langenderfer.
Perfect.
Langenderfer.
Perfect.
Is it Swedish or is it German?
That's German.
Yeah. Langenderfer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna try.
Don't worry about it.
So I'm just gonna jump into it. We'll get rocking.
Sounds good.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Face the Truth. I've been wanting to have this guy in for a while, a couple years at least, and I love his work. He's one of these artists that when you see his Instagram page, well, for me anyways, let's just say that I spend way too much time in the bathroom, like my wife's like, what? Why are you in it for so long? I'm like, oh, I forgot I was pooping. I'm actually enjoying this Instagram page like way too much. Yeah, but seriously though, like I get caught up on his stuff because it's like, first of all, I'm traditionally trained. I grew up drawing and painting. The smell of color pencils turns me on more than women's perfume. I love traditional art so much, and this guy is a beast. Like I just love seeing all his he's very technical, very precise, and wide range of just styles and genres and everything. He basically does everything, which I really appreciate, and I feel a connection to that. So it's really cool. So everyone, please welcome the one and only Tim. I'm gonna say this, Langenderfer.
Perfect,
Okay.
Jason.
See, you know it's funny because it's German last name. My name is German, and everyone says my name wrong too, and it annoys me. So I hate when I can't say someone's name the right way. I'll get it though. I'll get it. It's new. Langenderfer.
Perfect.
Ah. Yeah, mine's actually Zyla. That's
Yeah.
how you're supposed to say it like that. But
Zyla.
yeah, Zyla. But nobody does. They always say Sealer or whatever. So, anyways, how you doing, man? This is awesome.
Good. Hey, I'm really excited about this. You know, I felt the same way about your work. I remember seeing your work years ago, as even before your current rep. I think you're rep by Shannon Associates, and one of the workbooks or the showcase. I thought, oh my gosh, who is this guy? And the things you were doing, I just love. That's what I love about your work. And there are very few digital artists that I really like, but your work I love because your background in oil painting, watercolors. The feelings are the same, the range of styles and stuff. And I've always just been a guy that just loves drawing and painting. And that was my goal, was to make a living drawing and painting. But so my background, I worked as an illustrator from 84. In 2000, I started transitioning to portrait painting because my agent said, hey, you got to get working digital. So I had to make the decision, stay in illustration. At least I thought, I got friends like Greg Manchester that still do everything traditionally, or I thought portrait painting is a lot like illustration. You're working with clients, and that way I could get even more into the hands-on, stuff. And now I do a lot of teaching. I taught at the University of Dayton, anatomy drawing, figure drawing, illustration courses. Now I'm a high school teacher, and I just love it because I get to do all these things like behind me there.
Yeah.
Those are all classroom demonstrations. I like the collage of them. And man, I'm sculpting, I'm doing abstract art, we're doing, cartoons, academic traditional drawing. And so that's going to be the rest of the next cycle of my life. I'm 63. I want to do that till I'm 75. So hopefully in a few years, my goal is actually to quit doing any kind of commission artwork and just, but I can't quite afford to do that yet. So I'm one of those fortunate artists that I paint so I can teach, where, some people, they have to teach so they can support their painting.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That makes sense. No, it's like you're very similar in that way to my dad, because he was an art teacher for many years, but also like a fine artist, and now he's retired. Gosh, I think it's been like 7 or more years he's retired now, but the guy paints like over 300 paintings a year.
Man,
like he's just constantly painting, and and ice fishing. Ice fishing, he's obsessed with.
Your dad's a big name in Cincinnati. I'm in Dayton, just a little north of Cincinnati, but your dad came to Cincinnati Art Club a few years ago and was their guest artist and did some demonstrations and things. And he's a very well-known, artist in this part of Ohio. Yeah,
that's awesome. Like, I mean, it is amazing. Like it's really funny too, because a lot of people find out who my dad is and what he does, and they just go, "Oh, okay. That's why he did," but it's not true, because like it's very interesting. My dad had a very different way of like, he saw my drive and my passion, and he left me alone. Like, because I remember he would be like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because it's not easy. It's really like, maybe you should try to get like a job or something." But I wouldn't stop drawing, and he kind of. I also didn't want like, I wanted to figure it out on my own, kind of a thing. So I kind of just grew up just around art, because he was always painting and stuff. And so I was influenced by his work ethic and just watching him drawing and painting all the time. And then I would go by myself and just draw and try to figure it out. And whenever he tried to help me, I'd be like, "No, get away." But now it's like, when I get together with him now, I'm just like, I watch him and I ask, I'm still like I go plein air painting with him, but I always stop painting and just go and watch him, because I learn more that way, but when you were growing up, were you always into art? Did you have any kind of influence like that?
Not family members, but I always liked drawing. And kind of was a class artist. So when I was a kid, I was always be an artist and an artist and a hockey player, and whatever, as an artist and something else, illustrator, you're one of my heroes, because, the stuff you do for Mad Magazine when I was a kid, like Mort Drucker and Jack Davis. And I wasn't supposed to read those magazines, but I go to my cousin's house and he had a huge stack of them. And I was just like dumb. I don't remember reading. I was just the pictures, it was like smack it across the face. And so I was always influenced by those guys. And, and I've just always loved drawing and painting. So I went to school, did that, got a job as a staff illustrator at a design illustration studio. We did storyboards. I did humorous illustration, realistic stuff. Then after 4 or 5 years, I started freelancing.
Yeah.
Did that for quite a while. And
what kind of illustration were you doing? Like just publication, magazine type stuff? Yeah,
a little bit of tour. I did a lot of advertising work. Early on, it was humorous illustration for advertising. Back in the 80s, that was big. Storyboards. I did a lot of representational type of work. I was doing stuff with colored pencils, a lot of montages, and then I was also working with a pen named Tim Stout. I thought you might ask, because I'll show you. I dug out some of this old stuff. This was stuff for like business publications.
Oh, that's awesome. What is that done with, by the way?
That's gouache and colored pencil.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it looks great.
This is a very good character, but I was doing things like this. This is
that's awesome.
Fed Reserve Chairman. I think this was for Business Week or Mutual Funds Magazine. This is for an article about bad bosses, so
yeah, that's so cool, man. Wow.
These were all those personal finance magazines were a big deal back in the 1980s, but I did a lot of packaging illustration, Bath and Body Works, Kenner Toys, Hasbro stuff, things like that. Things that weren't high profile, but they were good profitable things. You get a packaging thing. And I was an illustrator, loved making changes, a lot of people, but man, I would go into meetings just because they would pay so well and say, "Hey, okay, this Bath and Body Work package, or this artwork." They'd have focus groups and stuff. I'd say, "Okay, well, what if we were to have that apple slice moved over, another blossom?" And the salespeople, everybody, of course, they wanted to see, Bath and Body Works. So designers were kind of like, for the design firm I was doing it for, we're like, oh man, but I just thought I could build those changes, So you'd have a bunch of sketches and comps and then
so funny.
things, and and friends of mine that were like, that did a lot of editorial work. There's a lot of great illustrators down there, Chris Payne. A lot of guys that were doing really good high level editorial work, and they didn't like changes, but with advertising, you got paid for the changes, and because there's a rush, you could just really almost sometimes hold them hostage.
That's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. I've never heard that before. That is the funniest thing. So like, in a way, because like, okay, part of the reason I got into doing digital work was because when I was first getting started in my career, I was self-taught painter. And it took me a while. Like I was mostly doing acrylics, and then sometimes I'd use color pencil on top if I needed to, but mostly it was acrylic. And I was trying to figure out how to make my work look like Chris Payne and stuff like that. Like I would just look at magazines and just like try to figure out this. That's kind of how I learned how to paint, was like looking at him, Roberto Parada,
great guys.
My buddy Fred Harper, James Bennett, like. Those are the guys that I was like trying to figure out.
Well, you got up there, man. You got up there. I mean, you're one of the world's best, Jason.
Well, I appreciate it, man. But I mean, tell my wife. But like, I was getting so stressed out with the just the traditionally the changes. Like I would do this acrylic painting, scan it in, color correct it, do all this stuff, send it. Oh, could you actually rework the eyes expression or whatever? And you're like, oh my gosh. And they didn't pay for any changes.
Yeah.
It was just like, you have to go on with acrylics. And I was like, it was so stressful and frustrating. And then a buddy of mine, I don't know if you know who Joe Bloom is, but he's okay. So
I don't know him, but I know of him.
Oh, okay. He was like, Jace, you got to start working digitally. And I was like, no. I was totally against it. But he talked me into it. My dad tried to talk me into it, but eventually I was like, I played with it and I'm like, oh, I can really paint like, and this is, you can do quick things. And so basically from that moment on, that's why I switched to digital and only do traditional for myself or for private commissions and stuff like that.
Well, you could never make deadlines without doing that. And those Bath and Body Work paintings were small. They were small things like the package, and I do them 200%. People are amazed when they see how small they are, but it's just so quick and easy. Okay, a couple more flowers and this and that, and that's just so much more money. And I'll tell you one funny story with that was one time I did some stuff with gouache, and I varnished it with some oil painting varnish just to get some gloss up, and I painted it very heavy, put it thick impasto and stuff. So the next round they said, hey, we need some more of those oil paintings. I told the art directors that wasn't oil, that's gouache. No, it's oil. And their creative directors insist the guy, he wanted it oil. I said, look, man, those aren't oil paintings. He said, yeah. And I said, fine. So I did him gouache again and put extra heavy, varnish on it, oil painting varnish. And then he loved them. And my client said, oh, he loved them. He could even smell, the paint. I said, well, that's a varnish. I said, but those oil paintings cost more money, man. So.
That's hilarious. I didn't even know you could varnish gouache. Like, how does that not ruin it? I mean,
well, oil and water, they don't mix. So you can put type of an oil thing on top. And there's actually some oil varnish, but I would use just regular retouch varnish.
I guess that makes sense.
I brush on retouch varnish.
I didn't think of it that way.
It pops up some of that color. Gouache does deaden a little bit.
Yeah. It gets that matte feel to it. But like, I just didn't think because people have asked me before, like, how can you, because I love doing gouache. Like I mostly just like little studies and stuff, but like, I've always thought, oh, you can't really like preserve it really. But I didn't think of it. That's
some retouch varnish on there. I paint on paper with gouache. I paint with oil on paper. Some of those sketchbooks you see on Instagram. That's just, I do a little drawing and I put some clear gesso on it and just paint right on top of that. There's all kinds of things you do as long as you're always working oil on top of the other water mediums. You can't really do it the other way and make it last.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you though a funny story though about putting, I think it was some acrylic. Many years ago, Greg Manchess, this is 30 some years ago, but. My wife had modeled him for this book cover, and he had painted her hair. her color, which was blonde, and then they asked him to paint it, maybe reddish tint. So he just put right on top of his oil painting, just glazed on some red acrylic. So then it was shot, and then you could wipe it right off.
Oh wow.
That's,
Yeah.
So in fact, I tell people I can tell if a artist was an illustrator at one time, maybe because we don't put the paint on usually a stick because we're always working for reproduction. So, fine artists are always thinking about more of the paint quality, surface quality.
Yeah.
Illustrators, hey man, cadmium red light's pretty expensive. I mean, we were always usually applied kind of thinner. So that's one little clue to tell somebody's background might have been in illustration sometimes, some of these great painters now.
That's funny. Yeah, it's really funny too. Like when I was in art school, there was like this whole, it was weird. I was in art school studying illustration, and I had a few teachers that were like, that I've heard this a few different times from various teachers, like basically talking down to illustrators, like not considering illustrators like fine artists, like Rockwell. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be an art school. I'm supposed to be getting a degree in illustration, and you're putting down Rockwell?
Yeah.
Like I had this assignment where it was a watercolor class, and we were supposed to pick a master painter and then do like replicate, and it had to be an oil painting for some reason. We had to try to replicate an oil painting, but with watercolors, and see how close we could get to the painting. And so I chose Rockwell because he was one of my favorite artists. And my teacher said, no, you can't choose Rockwell. I said, why? He's not a master. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's crazy. And I had to convince the teacher. I was like, listen, he's one of my biggest influences and why I love doing this. And he's a master to me. And he all he said was, okay, well, it better look as close as possible. I'm like, it will, that's what and I did. My painting looked almost exactly like it, but like, and he was amazed. He's like, it looks just like it. I'm like, that's the assignment. It's supposed to look just like it. But like, I was so insulted that they can, like, it's just weird to me. Like people still, I still hear people say that about Rockwell. Like he's not considered like a master or whatever. And it's just weird. Like Langenderfer, those guys were true masters.
Yeah.
Man.
There was a great exhibition at the Dayton Art Institute a few years back, and it was Rockwell's exhibition. Be able to see his originals, and he gets so close. And they blew me away. But one painting in particular, the boys running away from the no swimming. Every kind of paint application was just so perfect. I thought this guy, and to do it all in one painting, the colors, but just, really every kind of paint application he applied in that one painting, and it just looked beautiful. There's still a great deal of harmony. I just was looking, I've spent 4 hours. My wife goes to exhibit with me like that. She goes through and we'll take separate cars.
Yeah.
And they're just like getting as close as I can. No, but all those guys were, just heroes to me. And, so many great illustrators, painters, I love them all. And I love all that stuff. In fact, when I teach, I'm trying to be the high school art teacher you and I would have wanted to have had. Somebody that's, hey man, here we're doing cartoon stuff, illustration, we're doing representational, realistic stuff. We're, drawing from they get exposed to a lot of different things. It's so much fun because I get to demonstrate this.
Yeah.
I think about a lot of times guys like us, I'm thinking, okay, what would we have liked to have done? What would have held our attention? And watching some guy just sit down and get the materials out here step by step, how to do this stuff, mark it out. And then they produce really nice work.
I wish I had a teacher like you. Like I had my high school teacher was, I don't even think he could draw or paint. Like he was just very into art. Like he thought art was super cool. Like he would like talk about how cool art is, but like he couldn't do it. And then he'd basically just tell everyone, just do whatever you want. And then he gave everybody A's, But and my dad is like this amazing. He wasn't my art teacher.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of funny. I was going to ask you, being that you're a fan of illustration and everything else, how many Rockwell books do you have? Because for some reason, I can't stop buying Rockwell books. I have so many.
6 or 7 over there. I'm going to just turn this. I've got over 500 art books. Give you a little.
Yeah. Nice studio space, by the way. I'm jealous. That's awesome.
But There's a big Rockwell here.
Yeah.
There's some Schmidt.
Oh, I love that book. The Alla
Cornwell,
Prima book is so
Wyatt.
good.
Hey, there's a Tommy Flew original there.
Who's that guy? That's awesome.
There's Chris Payne.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's a cool.
Oh, now here's some good stuff here. Loomis.
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
So Gurney, all that stuff.
That's nice. Oh, is that a Tom Fluharty print too? With the dogs?
Yeah, that's a print. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a print one of my sons got me. But
I
Tom
love-
was here at Thanksgiving weekend. He came over. We had a great time for about 3 hours that Sunday with the common denominator guy I worked for many years ago and had an influence on Tom early in his career. Nick
cool.
Stamus, a great painter. So, I mean, just hanging out with those guys and having pizza and talking painting and illustration art for 3 hours is really is a blessing, man. It's just
Tom is a cool guy. I love Tom, man. He's been a good friend and like inspiration for 20 years maybe, something like that. It's crazy.
Just a great artist and a great person.
Oh yeah, he's the best, man. I always like to give him a hard time. I forgot what I was going to say. I think it's I haven't we moved here like a little over a year ago now, and we still have boxes that we have not unpacked yet, because we've been like rearranging and fixing things. That's why my background is very plain. This used to be a bedroom, but I decided to turn it into my studio so we can work on stuff downstairs. But anyways, all my art books are still packed up, and I miss them. I have to, like, I don't even know where. The garage is so insane right now. I'm like, but like I just seen your books stacked up. I'm like, I gotta go find my books, man.
Oh, and I've got a bunch in the other room. I showed you a picture. I can't show that painting yet, that big portrait, because I have to get it delivered and unveiled and stuff. But that room's probably got a couple hundred books too, close to the easel and everywhere. So yeah, and still files. I've been fortunate enough to a couple of times some very good illustrators have passed, and their widow they'd told their widows, hey, I think Tim would appreciate having my morgue, and I'll keep their files of illustrators and things like that. And
yeah,
so
that's so, that reminds me so much. Like when I was first getting started, I don't know, like, I'm sure you can relate to this, but like I was here in Chicago. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. And this is before Facebook. This is before it was really difficult to get to contact illustrators or even to get your work out there. And so I would go to like magazine shops, and I would just look through every magazine and find any caricature illustration was the main thing I would look for. And sometimes I was naughty and I would tear a page out. Yeah. And but my wall in my studio was it looked like a serial killer wall. It was my wall of inspiration. I had notes tacked on, like circling the, like, learn how to do this. And I was just obsessed at
that is so cool,
trying to figure out how to do this. And do you remember Ishmael Roldan?
Yeah.
So that guy was everywhere, and he was like published all over the place. And I was like, I got to figure out how to do this. And I think you'll find this kind of funny, is that I basically would look at his work and mimic it with acrylics. Like, but the funny part about it is I was only seeing published versions of his work, so they're like small. And so I was doing these illustrations with like a one brush with like a hair on it, and I'm just doing super tight cross etching, and it was like super realistic and tight, and that's kind of what his looked like. Eventually, him and I became really good friends, and we decided to swap art with each other. And so he sent me a couple of his originals, and I sent him a couple of my acrylics, and we had the exact same but opposite reactions. I was like, I got his in the mail. I'm like, holy crap, these are so simple. They were like very quickly painted, very simple, the way the eyes and everything, but just perfectly painted, like very beautiful paint job, but so simple, and just accurate. But when you scan it in and you shrink it down, it just it pulls together.
Yeah, tightens up.
And I'm like, what? I've been like killing myself with all this. So, and then he tells me, he's like, holy crap, you're painting this. It's so detailed. And it's so like I was kind of doing like Kruger type.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that rendering.
Yeah. Like, and it was taking me like, I would spend like, he could do his in a couple hours. Mine took like a week or so to do.
But you learn so much, Jason. I mean, I think that's a great way to learn. I mean, to start out really tight and then loosen up.
Yeah.
But you know how much you learn. And I just love the story about you putting all that stuff up. I mean, that's the way we were at the studio. I worked at my first job. We would trade things. We knew what other people, liked. I'll give you 2 Bernie Fuchs for one of this guy or, whatever.
That's awesome.
And sometimes they'd hold out. And, in fact, I'll tell you a quick story about Terrence Stuff Out magazine. My wife and I got married in 1983. She was a good student. We're down in Athens, Ohio. I'm waiting for her in the library. I said, come on, let's go. And she's doing some stuff. I see this thing. We're in the reference section, all these communication art magazines. What are these? And once an illustration annual. And this was in the winter of 84. So I pulled out, I was 83. I'm flipping through. I thought, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. It's like all these people hit me in this. I didn't know there was a publication like this.
Yeah.
And I this thing, this Chuck Slack guy, and he's from Chicago, this humorous illustrator, and this thing of John Wayne and Howard Cosell and Edward G. Robbins is for mow down herbicide. And I just looked around that I got to have this. So I just went back over. I told my wife first, they said, check this out for me. She said, you can't. These are reference books. That shows you how little I was in the library. These don't get checked out. So I just hold it up, took it to the bar I worked at that night as a soul night, took some watercolors and colored pencils and copied this exactly as I could. That was the thing. And I was just, obsessed. And I called Chuck Slack about 2 years ago and let him know about that. And, what an influence he was. And early on, I was that studio guy. I even signed my signature. Langenderfer had ended the way Slack would end his. I mean, it was just,
that's funny.
Could I be this guy's assistant or whatever? I mean, it was just.
I used to early on do my signature so it looked like Mort Drucker's. Like I would literally, he was my idol when I was first teaching myself caricature. Like it was, hold on one second. This is saying we've got 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But we'll do it again. Yeah, okay. We'll do it. We'll stop and we'll
perfect.
Do it. But I was gonna say earlier when you're talking, I thought it was funny when you talked about Mad and how you wouldn't even read it. You would just look, and that I did the same thing for many years. I didn't read Mad magazine. I just looked at the art and I would copy it. I would try to draw from it, and I had like stacks of Mad magazines that I never read. And one day I started reading through it. And I'm like, oh, this is terrible. like I wasn't into the writing. I was like, this is not, I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was stupid, but I'm like, I love the art. I mean,
the artwork was insane.
Still to this day, it's like stuff I've worked for Mad, and I will read what they wrote. And I'm like, still, like they should have me write for Mad, and illustrate. I mean, I'm just like, it's not my sense of. It's just it's a weird sense of humor. Some of it's good though. Some of it is funny. But I guess I have a kind of a darker sense of humor. But I'm more of the Monty Python humor, I think.
Yeah.
Like that kind of crazy stuff. But anyways, let's look at your work. Can you see my entire Photoshop screen with all the artwork?
Yeah, they were laying on top of each other. Yeah.
So okay, that's what I want. Cool. Yep. That way I can that makes more sense.
Yeah. That's I can see a bunch of things over laying over top of each other.
Okay, cool. All right, let's just talk about this one first then. But this is awesome. So this is oil on paper?
Oil on canvas, actually. Yeah.
On canvas, okay.
Scrap sheet of canvas, that's a section of it. And I started a series of sommeliers, and just people drinking wine, some profiles and things like that. And some were from reference. The guy up on the upper left is just, out of my head. I think I sent you maybe a picture of the 4 steps to that, drawing it and then putting in a little bit of paint. And that's one, during our break, I grabbed one of this. I'm going to send you one of this, a turtle bone. This is a cuttle bone. And this is a wonderful tool for lightly sanding down an oil painting. And it leaves this beautiful little powdery grit that, you wipe most of it off. I would take makeup sponge. There we go. and dip it in a little solvent and just, wipe off a little bit. It's a wonderful thing to paint into. Everybody I've ever told this and they did it, they just love it. It just feels good, but you just break off the corners of the cuttle bone. This is what they give for, I guess, turtles and birds, to keep their claws or something. And but it's a beautiful thing. It's a really old school thing. I found out about it many years ago. A guy at OU lived by a guy named Robert Douglas Hunter, a traditional academic guy that studied with Gamel. And he said this is what they would do to their painting surface when they got a little built up too much. It's just a fun thing. So I grabbed this during our break. I'm going to send you one. You got to try it out.
Oh, that's so you put it in the while you're painting, you put it into the paint?
No, you grab it.
Okay.
You can see this. And if you have an area and you just sand.
Oh, okay.
And then it gives this really nice surface, and it'll, so you can remove a little paint, you can knock down a little bit of that heavier top layer. It's a very common paint. You ever see some of those artists, the traditional academic artists, that are doing those very, very, using site size and doing those wonderfully exact, hyper rendered paintings, but it's, cartoons, anything, but it's just a really nice way to treat your surface. And then you just, after you do that, take your little makeup sponge. You want something without lint on it, and dip it in a little solvent or medium, just pull off some of this. I'm not aware of people doing this, but one time this was a pretty common thing. But even some of my friends that studied it, like the Angel Academy of Art in Florence or those kinds of places, aren't aware of this. But at one time,
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, cuttlebone.
That's
and what? Maybe if you Googled it, I remember doing that a couple of years ago, and there was a great landscape painter who was traditionally trained that used a cuttlebone quite a bit. But I'm going to send you one, Jason. They last forever too.
That's so cool. Yeah, one thing that my dad shared with me like years ago, and this is really nice too.
Thank you.
Is he told me about this thing he read about, and he was doing it, and so I tried it. Is getting like volcanic like pumice, like you get like a big tub of it, and you just mix a little bit of that into like your gesso.
Yeah. So
like when you gesso the board, it has like this, just like a little bit of a tooth, like if you're doing like plein air or something on like a smooth masonite board.
Yeah.
If you put a little bit of that pumice into the gesso, it almost feels like you're painting on a fine linen. It's a really
Sometimes even like fine sandpaper, like a super fine sandpaper. A lot of pastel artists do that too. And that liquid gesso is kind of the same way. You have it together now. Or I'm sorry, clear gesso. It's liquid, but clear gesso has got a different texture than regular gesso. It's got some of that in there, I think, and it's very fine. You can't see it.
Yeah,
it's really gives you a very nice little bit of tooth.
Yeah, that brush kind of just, you can feel it in the brush. Yeah, this is really, I love the colors in this.
Thanks.
This
is a painting of my daughter Jessie. This is one of the first paintings I did when I was building up my portfolio for portrait painting as I was transitioning there. And so this was quite a while ago. This is almost 20 years ago when I painted her there.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
It's so awesome.
Thank you.
Nice. I love your caricature. Like, so this is what I love. I love like your range, like, so when you first started sending in stuff on the podcast, like of guests, I was like, wow, like, because you wouldn't just do like you would do like, there'd be sketches and different versions, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I was like, this guy is an illustration nerd. I could tell right away. I'm like, this look right up my alley. But this I love your style of caricature too, and like this is just so like it's a spot on likeness. But this reminds me of like old school Mad type stuff. I love it.
There was a guy along with Drucker and Davis named Bruce Stark, and Bruce Stark, I remember, his his TV Guide magazine covers, just blow me away. He'd do a big crowd like for Hill Street Blues or Cheers or one of those things. But, there's a lot of Bruce Stark. I mean, he was using watercolors. And what I really like about him and Jack Davis, they were more tonal and painterly, even though they use watercolors, where Drucker was just the most insanely good draftsman in the world.
Yeah.
I always felt great appeal towards work that really turned form. And that's one of the things I love about your work is like, oh my gosh, this guy's just doing these caricatures, but they're just so dimensional. It's like, that is just so, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a sketchbook.
That's
I
the kind of
things
stuff.
with sketchbooks.
That's the kind of stuff that I love. Is that just like the form, like making it feel like I love like this just feels like flesh, and I love like the cool temperatures down here on the chin. This guy's face too. Oh my gosh. Like,
yeah,
he is a gift.
Tom Richmond's daily caricature. Remember during the pandemic?
Oh yeah.
And that was for that. So,
oh wow. Okay.
So I got to paint that.
Yeah, that was cool. I did a couple of those, I think, but this is really cool too. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is life drawing from a class I taught at the University of Dayton. So in my life drawing class, we were a little different. We did gesture work and quick sketch and things too, but I'd have the model hold a pose and, we'd get some good long sessions. I also created a class, anatomy drawing for pre-med students. It was not an anatomy class, it's a drawing class, but human anatomy was a subject matter. And I love that. But I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit, but this is where I'm teaching students how to work sculpturally, and I'm rendering across the form, with the pastels. That's a great introduction to painting that way, is rendering, painting across the form, and then blending along with the form. So if you're drawing short, you blend long. If you're painting long, you zigzag blend, always the opposite way you're putting down your strokes. And I think pastel work is just a great way to introduce students to those concepts and methods.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool, man. I love the structure in this too.
Yeah, that's what I was, teaching, just trying to understand structure and seeing those geometric forms in a figure, even a female figure, understanding some of the landmarks, the anatomy, and I really enjoyed doing that. In fact, the pre-med students, Jason, they were such great students. They were always class early. They never missed. Art students be hanging out, laying around on the floor in the hallway, and they were always there early. They were such high achievers. And I never took attendance because they never missed. And then the one day I was in there and half the students were just really, man, their eyes are puffy and they're shut. I said, oh, wow, you guys, half of you must have been the same party last night. And they said, no, we were up studying all night for OC. I said, what's OC? They said, organic chemistry. I said, oh, do you have a test? I said, oh, yeah, that's the one that where half of you guys are going to fail and, get eliminated from the program or something. And I'm joking. Gosh. And I said, when's your test? They said, right after this class. I said, man, get out of here. They go, I said, go get some coffee, go get a nap. If you have an organic chemistry test, don't come to class, that day. And they just, are you sure? I said, yes. No one will even know you missed class. And so they all left and they were kind of hesitant and they were thankful though. And then the other half of the class that were juniors raise their hands. Hey, Mr. L, they'd call me. We have a physiology. That's a tough thing for the juniors. Yes, when you have a physiology test, don't come to drawing class. You guys have got to pass it, man. Take a nap, study more. I don't care. I just don't want to see you here. There's night and day between the art students.
That's funny. Yeah, see, that's a good teacher right there. By the way, I love, man, I have a love-hate relationship with hands.
So do I.
Like people are like, man, you do really good hands. And I'm like, hands, I hate them. Like, I mean, because like I have this thing, and this is what I've taught my students, and I tell everybody that I can, that I believe like the hands are just as important as the face. And I've seen people will focus so much on the face, and then all of a sudden you'll see the crappiest looking hands. And I tell them, like, it ruins your entire image. Like the hand has to be good. I see it all the time. I see illustration where like someone did like the face looks great, and then all of a sudden you see these like hands. It's like, did you even look at hands? Like, and it just brings the whole thing down. But hands can be tricky. It's always one of those things where like I get an illustration. I did one recently where I had to have. It was like a 2-day deadline, and I had to paint It's the what's his name from China, Z
Oh yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
He's like holding the door, and there's all these arms and hands sticking out. I only had a day and a half to do that cover. I'm like, I have to paint that many hands. Like, oh my gosh, because it's like, to me, that's like painting. Might as well be like 10 faces. Like,
You did a great job painting that hand for that was it American Spectator magazine you just did, or Washington Examiner?
oh yeah, thank you.
And the fact that that was your wife
Oh
posing
yeah,
for that's just fantastic, man.
oh my gosh. But you know what I did with that? Because I used my wife instead of my hands, because I was able to pose her better and direct her, but she's got like these really female fingers and stuff, and I'm like, ah. So I took the photo of her hand, and I went into Photoshop, and I like distorted. I tried to like do things with Photoshop to make her hand look thicker, and then I drew from that. So like I was able to like kind of create her hand, make her hand look more like a man's. It didn't look that good, but then when I redrew it and stuff, I was able to like make, because it was funny. The art director was like, "That's your wife's hand?" I'm like, well, I use it as a reference, but because I showed her and she's like, "Oh, that's not what my hands look like." Like, no.
This is more stuff of that same class.
This is cool, man.
Pastel on paper, just quick stuff, and but I love doing that.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I think would be cool to frame and hang up. You know what I mean? Like, this is just like, I just love the there's like this organicness of it, and there's like this fresh energy. I just love that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'd start out pretty gesturally, get in there with the eraser, erase things out, and then pick an area to focus. And that was just drawing the skeleton was so much fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
And that is so cool, man. I love this just like the flow. There's like a nice flow, like the movement here with just like the overall shape of this, and then how the spine is just flowing through that way. It just it's like this, like it reminds me of I can't remember the name of that artist. I don't know, it reminds me of this artist, but this is so cool. I love this.
Thank you.
It's awesome, man. That's Pastels?
Yeah, pastel, charcoal. Yeah, just on paper. That's, the classroom demonstration. Yep.
Man, you have some lucky art students, man.
Oh, and that was at the university. Now, this is high school stuff here. So, and I really enjoy doing these smaller demo boards. What happened was, a couple of years ago, we were, from March till the end of the year, had a Zoom, and I'm not the tech guy, but when we came back the following August. School, I was that, man, parents and people, hey, we got to get kids back together. So we're in school, but I would do my live demonstration instead of doing them large on the board or big things. Now what they do is they have their laptops. We're in the same room. They're at their desk. I would be filming this, and so I could work smaller, talk about things, then upload my demonstration into Google Classroom so they could go back and watch it all again. So there were some things, as unfortunate as that pandemic was for teachers, some new teaching methods that I use. And me, I'm not a tech guy, but I could, set up this. We could have the Zoom, record it, save it, and I could talk to them about all these, different things. And and I just thought when I'm talking and writing down these notes, and I get carried away, and the kids see my enthusiasm, so I think they enjoy it.
I love I let you like showing the paintbrushes and everything. Like you did a little,
we talk about
illustration. Here, this is the paintbrush I did. So you could have just showed a photo, but like, no, I'm going to paint it and draw it in there. So.
Well, I'm using different brushes. So I'm saying, here, look at this. And that's in the film, but, painted in there. But, just.
So cool.
Yeah. And also, if you can draw and paint eyeballs, man, you got kids' attention. So I get some eyeballs in there. Wow, man, that's an eyeball.
It's funny. It's very true that you say that. Like, I get that all the time about like eyeballs. I love painting eyes. But eyes and teeth, people are like, how did you paint those teeth so real? And it's like, same way I painted the earlobe. Yeah. It's like I didn't do anything different, but for some reason they just get blown away by like teeth. And it's like, well, my thing is I'm always like, well, you got to slow down a little bit. Like, just draw it and then paint it. But like, it's just funny. Like, I think you know what it is? Shiny things.
Yeah.
If it's shiny, they're like, ooh.
Yeah. How do you paint water? Same way you paint the sky.
Yeah. My dad used to say that to me all the, like, he was like, I overheard him say things like, painting a nose is no different than painting water. And when I was younger, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But now it makes all the sense, you know. This is so cool too. So this is like is this just like a study, like a color palette study?
They have exercises. All my students, they do exercises, and painting value scales can be a little boring. So I try to make it a little exciting, and they have to do a short value scale and try to increase or decrease the value by the same degree from each scale. And then also this was a thing where we're using analogous colors and complementary color scheme. So you're taking two colors that sit across from each other on the color wheel, orange and blue, and then taking one of those colors and using the two colors next to it. And that's your palette. You add white and red. So it's just a great way
to like a split. Is it a split comp?
Yes.
Like that? Yep. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. That's so much fun to do that.
And then they have to render a sphere, a block, a cube. So this is actually what they're doing. Then they create a character of some kind. It can be a mech, it can be a fish. I like them to keep it simple and just use those colors to do a little painting. So, if you're telling somebody, hey, we're going to learn about these color schemes, well, that can be boring. But if they see actually you do something and, they can, hey, now it's develop these skills and now you're going to paint a little monster or something.
Yeah.
That just makes it a lot more fun.
That's so awesome, man. Yeah, that is so cool, man. Oh, sorry, I'm putting these over on my other screen so that they're out of the way when I. So so is there a order here with these? These are really cool too. Is this
same model here? Yeah, these were paintings. What I consider by fine art. The painting there in the middle of that painting, the theme was about keeping your eyes focused forward. You can see where I didn't render the back of her head. There's some glare on there. That's my phone. But the back, her ear in that area, you can see, some of the early painting that I left undone. The idea was sometimes you have to quit listening and you just have to stay focused on what's ahead of you and try to put some of the stuff in the past. So I wanted to paint her where she's, her mouth, that sometimes it's hard to keep your chin up in your eyes and it takes a little effort. And I just wanted to convey that, the strength of being able to, hey, my chin's up, I'm focusing forward. This is an easy thing to do, but, I'm going to keep moving forward and, quit listening. You can only listen to so much noise and then, do what you got to do. And as the same model for that painting, that was a commission painting for a guy that owns a museum of spiritual art in Franklin, Ohio, Ramesh Malhotra. And that's called A Leap of Faith. And, there's some symbolism and things there, the corrupted hand, the other hand that's turning towards a light.
Yeah.
And what was really nice about this was I've had a couple of people that saw it in the museum and they wrote me saying how that helped them while they were dealing with a drug addiction. And that was really meant a lot to me, just that little bit of effort, to take that first step.
It's a beautiful painting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love all this kind of movement in this brushwork. It's just like beautiful.
Yeah, it kind of represented clothing and things that aren't, like gold to make clothing or some, but things that are not permanent. That large, heavy red drapery, something that's been used in the history of art to in a lot of themes and things. So, sometimes there's things that we don't control that can hold us back, but we do get to choose like what we put on and what we wear. So I wanted to have something symbolic of both, that you have to kind of, get through, whether you're putting it on yourself or there's other circumstances that you're not putting it on, but you have to react, to. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a really awesome contrast between like the like more rendered form with it's just it shows, it's just got this like energy and movement to it. It's really cool.
The hand down there, that was using like the old David Grove, Bernie Fuchs technique, putting down paint and then getting some solvent or whatever on the hand over here that's kind of corrupt and then lifting out and leaving that kind of rough. That's just that reductive technique that a lot of illustrators used, Dudash and some of those guys back in the 70s and 80s.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
How big is that painting?
That is, I got it down here because I borrowed it for an exhibition. It's about 30 inches high by maybe 22 wide, 30 high by 20. So it's not real big. That's a classroom demonstration right there. I was a student was doing a self-portrait, and I don't work on students' work, but I'll work off to the side. So, you can see my initial drawing where I'm using straight line construction.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see all phases, and this, I stopped there. She was doing really well, but, then this is direct painting, but then, I could start glazing over this, and start doing some indirect painting. I love it all, Jason. I mean, I love direct painting, indirect painting.
Yeah. Do you find like, it's funny because I've been asked so many times, like what's your technique and I don't think I ever do a painting the same way twice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't always start with the eyes or always, like sometimes I will start painting by just painting. Like, yeah. I'll forget the drawing part. I'll just start going in with the shapes. And sometimes I start with drawing and even the way I decide to start putting the color in, sometimes it's like, I don't know if it's because I get bored with doing the same thing or if it's just, I kind of feel like it's just however I feel. I'm just kind of like, whatever. And people get annoyed sometimes. Like when students like, wait a minute, last time you told us to do it like this, but then now you're doing this thing. Like, I'm like, well, yeah, I am. That's how I did it now. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of, I don't know. I don't, maybe it's because I am self-taught painter. Like I feel like I'm always exploring, like learning. Like, I feel like I'm still learning all the time.
That's a great thing. That's, I think I'm a good teacher because I'm a good student. I mean, I love learning more and more about painting, drawing, and I like it all. If it's well done, caricature stuff. So here you can see a couple steps. I photographed this, and you can see I drew with a brush early on, or actually I might have used a piece of new pastel and then a brush, just blocking things in. I get it blocked in, I get a few color notes, and this one I'd started an eye and then just work my way out from there.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Gosh, that's an awesome painting, man.
Yeah, I do a lot of dog portraits.
Such a great capture of expression in this dog. Like,
well, thanks.
I mean, I just love that the mouth.
Well, there's some tricks to getting dogs. I always tell people, hey, I'm not going to paint your dog from life. I'm going to take some photos. So let's walk the dog so the dog is relaxed, make treats so the dog is in their own environment. I want them kind of relaxed, and usually have somebody kind of working behind me a little bit, holding a treat or something. But I encourage people, pet portraits are a great way. It's a nice side hustle. And you have a chance, like, this one here, you can see the beginnings from my mark. I think I just was using brush or maybe some charcoal to start this. We can see I just kind of laid in lots of things in there and then just went in there and started painting from the area of focus and moving out. But, that lower corner, you can see where I'm letting the brushwork define, the fur. I'm trying to make all my strokes count. A lot of times, like some of these portraits, I'm form rendering, but here I'm putting down a stroke, and I want that stroke to be definitive. I want that stroke to, not to have to fuss with it. And that's not real easy. No. And I'll tell you, a guy that I watched do that many years ago, and how Greg Manchester paints, just every stroke is placed perfectly. But many, many years ago, watching him paint, and off to the side, he'd load up his brush and put it on there. So he'd test it a couple of times. So his wipe off, or his palette, not his palette, but off to the side there. So by the time he put that stroke down, it was just perfect because he did a couple little warm-ups and practiced, how much paint to put on the brush and that stuff. Now, I'm sure he doesn't even do that anymore. This was 35 years ago, but I thought that was so cool. I learned a lot from Greg the couple years he was here and hanging out with him. He's just such an efficient guy too. And everything, and never wasted a minute. I'm a procrastinator. I'll waste time.
This is beautiful brushwork, but I love, it's that's one thing that I find like the older I'm getting and the longer I've been painting, it seems like the slower it takes me longer to do a painting sometimes, because I know too much now. I know, I'm more,
I know,
like, I analyze things a little bit more, and I don't know, I can still bust something out if I have to, but I feel like when I'm painting more now, it's like And also it's funny, like the more the older I get and the more I paint, the more loose I want to be and more expressive. Not because, oh, are your eyes going bad? Like, no, it's more beautiful and expressive to me. And like even like even when I'm doing digital paintings, a lot of times I will while I'm blocking in, I will shrink it down. It'll be small on my screen. Like I'm doing it from a distance, and then when you zoom in, it's like, oh, that looks so cool. But it's just interesting, I like how the evolution of painting for me. And I like this kind of stuff to me is my favorite. Like I love this kind of brushwork. It's so suggestive, but when you see it from a distance, it just pulls together and it's just beautiful. It's just awesome. And that's the one thing I love about Greg's work too, is just like I had him on the podcast, and he was showing some images of all these men fighting this giant octopus thing, and it was like, you just made this up out of your head, and it's just so awesome. Like just the brushwork and some of the suggestions. It's like he does a few marks, and it's like a guy, and it's so amazing. And it's just like, oh, you suck, dude.
Yeah, that's a tough way to paint, you know.
Yeah,
I can get by because I can just keep rendering, you know. But yeah, to paint like Greg is just really phenomenal.
And what a nice dude. He is like one of the nicest guys ever. I love that guy.
Well, you know, I think the illustration business, the design business, the art business, portrait painting is just so many people, so many different backgrounds, so many different beliefs, but it seems like everybody's always been so generous. That's another reason, you know, I always, you know, like, I mean, I like teaching, but just I think about all the people that I've been able to spend some time with and learn from and interact with. It's just, you know, it's just a great community. And I don't think I've ever had a bad experience. I mean, you know, but yeah, I just think the illustration game, portrait painting and everything, there's some crossover there, is just a great group of people.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I've only, oh, hold on a second. So it says we have like 10 minutes left. So that's good. But I've agreed with you. Like I have met a few artists that I looked up to. I'm not going to say who it is. But just it's funny because I went to the Society of Illustrators with Tom Fluharty, and we had a great time. And this one particular artist, if Tom watches this, which I'm sure he'll know who I'm talking about. But this guy was someone that I looked up to for years and everything else. And he was the biggest jerk to Tom, to me. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that this guy, like it was like, who do you think you are? Like, why would you treat someone and literally talking down to both of us? It was insulting. It was a bunch of different things. And from that day on, I can't even look at his work anymore. You know what I mean? Like it bummed me out so much. And like, but I learned something from that. And I learned something that I think it's helped me in my art career. It's helping me with my comedy. It's helping with just life in general. Is you can go pretty far in life by just simply not being an asshole. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. I agree.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten opportunities and things because people are like, wow, man, you're just such a nice guy. You don't have to be that nice. It's like, no, I should be. We all should be. Like, there's no reason to not be nice to people. But you're right. Most people in the art world, I find they're like family. Yeah, like we all, you understand. It's like we're all speaking the same language, and you know that's why I love Bobby Chu so much.
Oh yeah. I don't know him, but I've listened to his things, and if he's connected with you and Fluharty,
oh yeah, no, he's like one of those guys that's just so inspirational and passionate, and just the guy is always just like so. It's like infectious, I think. Same with Steven Silver, very very much like that. This. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, Steven Silver's the most positive guy in the world.
Oh, I know. He's a great guy. I love that, guys. This is beautiful. This is so cool. Is this like a vellum paper or something?
Yeah. This was from that same anatomy drawing for pre-med students class. So we'd have the model there. And, this is the upper starting clockwise from the upper left. That's the first drawing. And we were talking about everything we can see and just methods of even hatching and cross hatching. You can see little things I'm saying, don't, do this instead. I'm talking about using a clock face to determine angles. So we do a nice rendering and then put a piece of vellum over it and then draw the bones. And then we put a piece of vellum over that and then start rendering muscle in some pastel. And those are just my notes and stuff I'm putting on there. The students' drawings would be cleaner. But so you can kind of see that layered, process. The pectoralis major, I didn't get that taped in the right spot. In fact, one of the reasons why, because I was digging the stuff through my old stuff, because I thought it'd be fun to show a variety, because that's kind of what I'm known for, the different interests. And I thought I can remember how that exactly attached correctly.
Yeah.
Those kids, they knew the anatomy. They knew every, bone, every muscle and everything. But that was just a fun class, a lot of fun.
That's funny. Like my favorite class in art school. Here, let's stop because we only have a few minutes left. So this was so cool seeing all your work, man. So awesome. My favorite class when I only went to art school for like 2 years. And then my teachers kept asking me like why I was there. Because I was like working professionally already, and I actually taught a couple of the classes because teachers couldn't make it on time. They're like, Jace, could you teach the class today? I'm like, all right. But microphone behave. But my favorite class was this anatomy class because our art school, all the electoral, the English, the writing, the math, all those kind of classes that we had to take were all centered around art. That's how they did it. And it was really cool. So like my math class was, like things like the golden triangle and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But like the anatomy class was the science class, or was one of the science classes. And it was the hardest class. It was just like, we had to, of course, but like basically for our midterm, we had to draw the skeleton front and back, every bone from memory, perfectly proportioned. And then for our final, we had to lay vellum on top and draw all the muscles. like with and like, so it was a pretty intense class, but it's like one of the best classes because it just really helped me. Like I don't remember all the names of the muscles or the bones right now, but what it taught me was how to recognize like visually. So like even like if I'm drawing a grizzly bear, I'm not a master expert on grizzly bear anatomy, but if I look at it, I can tell like by the shadows and different things, oh, this is a muscle that's doing this. So I can see all those things now. And I think that's one of the most important things about anatomy is just that, like even when you're doing a portrait of a dog, like you're not an expert on the anatomy of a dog, but you understand enough about anatomy in general that to trick people.
Those underlying volumes and forms. If you have that understanding, that helps with everything. So.
That's awesome, man. This is what do you have going on right now besides so you're teaching full time, but when do you do
full time? But it's I teach 2 sections of art fundamentals. It's mostly freshmen. We do everything. I teach drawing 1, I teach drawing 2, I teach painting, I teach studio art. I teach 3-dimensional design. I teach 6 or 7 classes, a day. But Jason, I just love it. And we do such fun stuff that I think you would like. Like the students are oil painting. I make the other kids that are going to come into the classroom out in the hall wait. And they have to form a line. And I say, the oil painters, these are the kings of the school when they come out. And I got these little girls, and they're just, I said, nobody's allowed to eyeball you. I see you're oil painting, you're royalty. So I make the other kids step to the side and they all go along with it. At first they're like, what? I said, yes, they're oil painters. You guys are Philistines, man. When they come through, they're royalty. You don't talk to them unless they talk to you first. You don't make eye contact with them. And so after a while, it becomes a fun thing. The seniors in studio art, they get their own spaces like we did in college. So, and when they'd come in, walk through, would play the champ is here. The champ is here. So, it's like,
that's funny.
It's just a lot of fun.
Awesome.
But I still paint a lot on the side because until a few more years, I'm 63. When I'm 66, I hope to cut back on the commission work and just teach because I can collect Social Security. But until then, high school art teacher, Catholic school, small school, I'm not expecting to get paid much, but so I've got to keep up the commission work.
Yeah.
To do that. So
yeah, it's the life of the artist, man. It's a hustle.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I am that's something that I've been dealing with lately, is just like the ups and downs of like, cause it's been a slower year than normal. And so just trying to balance out and try to get more work here. And it's tricky. It's tricky when, you have a family and a mortgage and all that stuff. It's like
a great side hustle is portrait painting. There's so many dogs. And, I tell people, hey, that's just a great way. You can do them quick. You can turn them over quick. Some of these big paintings, especially if it's a group, a family, man, those take a long time, get a nice deposit. But then, it takes a while in the painting. But as far as your $1 per hour, it's, I'd encourage anybody.
I've thought about doing that. I think maybe I'll do a couple paintings just so I can show people. I mean, I've painted dogs before, but maybe do a couple, because that would be actually a kind of a nice side. I like that idea.
Do we have another 30 seconds? I'll tell you great marketing.
We've got 1 minute. Exactly.
Okay. When I started transition trying to do dogs, I got some postcards made up, and I'd just drive around in nice neighborhoods where people are walking nice dogs and go up and give them, and I thought, hey, start carrying some treats. So I'd have some good doggy treats. I'd get the high-end ones. And then I even started taking along some of the doggy poop bags. So somebody's, hey, let me get that for you. Then what's this guy? Oh, by the way, I paint dog portraits. And here's my card, postcard.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And you know what? I didn't have to waste putting ads in. I mean, my cards were only going to dog owners. I saw the dog. Hey, that's a nice dog. That person's, got a little scratch. It's walking him. I was in the right place. So
that's a good idea, man.
It's just,
hey, real quick,
marketing.
Before we go, thank you so much for doing this, by the way. Can you let people know where they can find you online so that they can check out your awesome Instagram and all that stuff?
Yeah. At Tim Langenderfer. At Tim Langenderfer.